Well, the first episode of Star Trek Picard has now aired, and of course, being the lifelong Trek fan that I am, I decided to fire up my CBS All Access account and give it a watch. The first thing I noticed was that, like Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard has about 5 zillion producers credited in the opening sequence. This makes me worry that we're looking at a similar too many cooks in the kitchen type of situation than what we had on Discovery. The final producer credited is Alex Kurtzman, which really makes my butthole clench up, because for those who aren't familiar, Kurtzman and his former writing partner Roberto Orci were together responsible for many of the worst-written big-budget action films of the late 2000s and early 2010s, including the first 2 of those god-awful Star Trek reboot films. So first, let's start with the things I liked. A lot of the look and feel of the world is very good. I was expecting it to be way too futuristic looking, the same way that Discovery and the reboot films are, and there are a few moments where it kind of did, but for the most part, no. They did a decent job of keeping everything looking fairly consistent with the TV series. All the beeps and boops are correct, the uniforms look great, though they don't line up with the future timeline uniforms from either TNG's All Good Things or Voyager's Endgame. The timeline was changed in both of those episodes, so I guess it's conceivable that for some reason Starfleet's uniforms were changed back to the older ones. Either way, I don't really care because those are the best looking Star Trek uniforms anyway. The location exteriors also look good. Starfleet looks more like Starfleet than it has in decades. There were a bunch of other little references I appreciated too.
Tea, Earl Grey, decaf.
I really love that. Picard, of course, lives on his family vineyard in France, which is a plot point in several episodes of TNG, and he has a dog named Number One, which is hilarious.
Oh, Number One. It's all right, boy.
It's also nice to see Patrick Stewart back at it again, though I will say he doesn't really feel much to me like Picard. Like, I get that it's been almost 20 years since we've last seen him, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me. It kind of just feels like it's Patrick Stewart playing himself rather than Jean-Luc Picard. He just doesn't really command any screen presence the way he used to. And, I mean, he looks great for his age, but you can really tell that he's not what he used to be. And I want to emphasize that none of this is Patrick Stewart's fault. He's obviously a lot older now, and that's nobody's fault. He just seems tired.
Engage.
The script is really bad. There's this one scene early in the episode where Picard is being interviewed by like this Nancy Grace type figure, and the entire conversation is this onslaught of exposition. It's very much in line with Kurtzman's writing style. Throw everything in the kitchen sink at the audience all at once so you don't really have any time to stop and process how stupid everything is. So from what I can gather, at some point in the past, Jean-Luc Picard resigned from Starfleet in protest after a terrorist attack on Mars, which killed about 100,000 people. Everybody blamed Picard for this, I think, because he chose to attempt a humanitarian mission to save the population of Romulus, and it's at this point when you realize what's being referenced here is the backstory from Star Trek 09.
No! No!
For those who don't know what I mean, a quick TLDR, the plot of Star Trek 09 is that the planet Romulus gets destroyed by a supernova a few years after where the TNG film series left off. So this one Romulan ship goes back in time about 150 years to before even the original Star Trek series takes place in order to get his revenge on the Federation with this now super advanced ship from the future, because they blame the Federation for not being able to stop the supernova for some reason. This time travel event is what splits the Star Trek timeline into the original timeline and the reboot timeline. Star Trek Picard is now taking place further along in the original timeline after Romulus was destroyed, and this is the first time that anything from the reboot films has ever been acknowledged in any way by anything that takes place during the original timeline or uses any of the original cast. Makes sense? No? Doesn't matter. All you need to know is that, as I've alluded to, the reboot films have been a point of massive controversy in the fandom, because they're awful, and nobody involved in their production understands the first thing about Star Trek. They had their share of defenders back when they were first released, but I feel like most of those people were kind of just into them because they were action movies. Like, I haven't seen them brought up in a positive light in ages.
Spock! Spock, stop! Stop!
It would have been so easy to just not acknowledge those movies, and I would have definitely been happier for it. First off, the supernova never really made any sense to begin with. The first time we're told about it by Leonard Nimoy in Star Trek 09, he mentions that the supernova was in danger of destroying the entire galaxy.
A star will explode and threaten to destroy the galaxy.
So Spock took this little ship with a whole bunch of Deus Ex Red stuff and used it to create a black hole to, like, delete the supernova or send it back in time or something, but he didn't get there soon enough to stop it from destroying Romulus. Then his ship and the bad guy ship both also got caught in the black hole and are sent back in time. Now, maybe old Spock was going a little senile when he delivered that exposition, since, I mean, nothing about it makes sense.
Threaten to destroy the galaxy.
In Star Trek Picard, it's retconned here in this interview scene that it was specifically Romulan's sun that was going to explode, and so Romulans were the only ones who were ever really in danger, not the entire galaxy.
When you first learned that the Romulan sun was going to explode and the terrible consequences that would bring,
There were millions of lives at stake.
Romulan lives.
The Romulans asked for our help.
Except I've watched through the scene a few times now, and I'm still having a lot of trouble identifying what the correlation between Picard's attempted rescue of the Romulans and the terrorist attack on Mars is supposed to be, or why anyone would blame Picard for the latter because of the former. Perhaps this connection will be more adequately explained at some point down the line? Who am I kidding? So anyway, the terrorists who attack Mars were androids like Data, now referred to as synthetics for some reason, and in response to the attack, everybody's now prejudiced against synthetics and creating them, and all research on AI has been made illegal, kind of like in Blade Runner, I guess. It doesn't really feel like it lines up with the optimistic, hopeful look at the future that Gene Roddenberry envisioned, but oh well. Picard is visited by a mysterious young woman named Dahj, who's shaken because a bunch of Romulans recently tried to kidnap her, only for her to activate and kick all of their asses using super special martial arts abilities she didn't know she had, and she receives a vision of Picard in her brain, I guess. Picard deduces that this is because she's a synthetic who was created by Bruce Maddox, the guy from Measure of a Man who wanted to take Data apart to study him. It's also revealed through some very shoddy exposition that Dahj probably has some of Data's memories, and that's how she knew to find Picard, or something? Her physical appearance is based on some painting made by Data when he was still alive, and Picard even goes so far as to name her Data's daughter, in a neat little reference to LOL from that one episode of TNG. Anyway, Dahj is immediately killed, and somehow this 79-year-old man survives being thrown back like 25 feet and likely knocking his head against the ground. Don't worry though, after a quick nap, he's doing A-okay. The episode closes out with the audience learning that Dahj had a twin sister living on a research station which seems to have been built out of a Borg cube. It doesn't feel like we really accomplished all that much during this pilot. Pretty much the entire thing is spent either expositing on major events that have occurred since Star Trek Nemesis, or following Picard around as he hops between locations like the Starfleet Archives or the Daystrom Institute and talking to people about synthetics. This is broken up by the occasional vision or dream or premonition or whatever of Data, and that's about it. If this had been an episode of TNG, I feel like they would have been able to get through most of the material from this episode within the first 10 or 15 minutes, and it probably would have been a lot more interesting too. So far, I'm not really impressed. It kind of seems like the hook for this season is going to be that same tired, stupid, ooh, what's going on? What's the big secret gonna be? Mystery box nonsense that both Into Darkness and Discovery were going for.
I'm sure she has no idea what she truly is.
There are lies upon lies.
It's shaping up to be Nancy Picard and the Mystery of the Replicants. I didn't like the pilot episode, but I guess I don't hate this yet. I suspect I probably will before the season is done, but so far at least it's leagues better than the pilot episode of Star Trek Discovery was. I have a sneaking suspicion that the only thing that's really drawing me to it at all is the kind of euphoric sensation of finally seeing Patrick Stewart and Brent Spiner back in action with other returning characters due to appear in upcoming episodes. I have no idea why the powers that be in charge of Star Trek have for over a decade now seemed steadfastly determined to make sure Star Trek doesn't feel anything at all like Star Trek. Like, if you told me 12 or 13 years ago that the dude behind Family Guy would someday be the only one left interested in preserving the integrity of what Trek used to be, through a parody series no less, while everything official to come out of the franchise would be complete ass, I'd think you were nuts. I guess that's all I have to say about this for now. I'll probably want to wait until the season is over before I come back and do a more comprehensive review, but for now, if you like this video, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell if you're new. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought of Picard's first episode. Check out some of the other great stuff I've got up on my channel, and as always, thanks so much to all of you guys for watching, and take care.